Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode. I am joined with Kate Kripke again because she did so well on that first episode we did, and we had so many comments from mums who really resonated with that episode. If you haven't listened to it already, it's called "The Reasons Why High Achieving Women Struggle with Postpartum Anxiety." And today we had a few questions around how to be comfortable spending money on yourself when you're not earning. Again, specifically for mums, because you're on maternity leave, your partner's earning the money, and then often mums come to me like, I can't spend that on myself, or I don't feel like I should, or I don't think it's fair that I spend money on myself when I'm not earning anything. All of these things are
Oh,
me
I've
as
heard them
well.
all.
Yeah,
I've
I
heard them
bet you
all.
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hear it as well in my own thoughts, but then you sort of stop yourself. And we had a few questions come through for that. So let Kate introduce herself again for those who haven't heard the first episode that we did with her. Kate, thank you.
I love being here. It's so funny. I do podcasts frequently, and it really is cool when you click with someone so quickly
Mm-hmm.
over a screen across the world, having never met. I'm in Boulder, Colorado. You're in Australia. Never met you, but that was sort of it was a quick click for us last time we chatted.
It
So
was. And it makes the
I'm great.
podcast really good because it just
Yeah.
flows.
Yeah. So I'm grateful for being invited back. Thank you. Um, I am, just for those folks who haven't heard the first one conversation you and I did together, I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training in Colorado. That I have spent the primary, I've been at this work for 20 years, and primarily until about the last year and a half, I was doing clinic-based psychotherapy work. So I'm a maternal mental health specialist with a unique specialty in that perinatal. You and I had a little comment, like, what are we talking about? That pregnancy through that first year after childbirth is a unique specialty that I've spent a lot of time working on. I started a clinic here in Boulder, Colorado that I ran for 15 years, and now I get to do this work with women all over the world. And really my primary goal, what I really focus on right now in my work, is helping those women. They may be career women, they may be working moms, they may be women who are really used to having being high achievers and meeting the goals that they set for themselves. So that may be work and career based, it may not, but I love working with those women who become mothers and struggle with things like anxiety and worry and guilt and overwhelm in motherhood. So yeah, that's what I get to do all day, every day. It's such a
How
gift.
lovely. Yeah. And it sounds like you really enjoy what you do as well.
Well, I think part of the reason I enjoy what I do is I'm really helping to mentor and coach and teach women to manage to find the things that I had to learn for myself. So I really bring to the work I do, not just my 20 years of clinical work, but my 17 years of being a mom and my 50 years of being on the planet. So I really get to, it's sort of like, I've been there, I've done
Mm.
that. Not everybody needs exactly the same thing. You will never catch me using the word should. I do not like that word, but I think what I get to do every day is help you really understand what's happening for you so that you can move the things out of the way that are getting in your way and learn the new skills that help you really feel good about yourself and your life and feel as connected as you want to be to your kids. And I think, yeah, that's the beauty of the work. I'm not just working with those moms, right? I'm working with their kids too, even though they're not there. Because when moms are healthy, they show up in a way that they often feel better about when they're mothering their kids.
Exactly. It's like you were saying earlier, it's being able to be that secure attachment with
That's
your
right.
kids. And I was like, yes, it really is.
That's right.
Um,
And people don't always understand what that means to be a secure attachment. So, maybe we'll come back and have a conversation about that sometime, but
yeah,
it's motherhood is hard. And if we're not healthy, it's going to be real hard to stay steady
yeah.
when shit hits the fan in
Well,
motherhood.
why is it that we struggle so much to not put ourselves first as such, but make ourselves a priority? And so many mums think if they make themselves a priority, then they're neglecting their children, or they're not good parents, or, you know, but it's just not like that, is it? Because when you've got a happy mum in the family, the whole household is happy. And again, it's going back to feeling like you can spend money on yourself, even though maybe you're not bringing that money into the family.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the $1 million question, right? Why do we as women believe that being a good mom means that we're taking care of everybody else and sacrificing ourselves and our own needs and wants in the process? That is the $1 million question. And you know, I've been doing this work for a long time. I have a lot of friends who are mothers. As I told you, I'm a mother. I can't show up for my kids and my family the way I want to if I'm depleted in, you know, biologically, psychologically, socially, or spiritually, right? If I'm feeling depleted and burnt out and lost, I can't show up well. So it's counterproductive to have that mentality that like, it should be about everybody else. And the data will show us that, you know, what our kids need most, what they need most is for us to be healthy and well. So
it's that
I guess
cycle, isn't it? We're striving to be this perfect mum, and in the meantime, we're not putting ourselves first. So we're then in that cycle of neglecting things because we're just not looking after ourselves.
well, I think it comes from that idea of either or, you know, am I looking after my kids or am I looking after myself? Am I prioritizing my kids or am I prioritizing myself? And really the magic is in the both and. I am prioritizing and looking after myself in service of my kids. It's not an either or, it's a both and. And, you know, I think that often is it's like, that's the doorway to beginning to give ourselves permission to spend money on ourselves if, you know, there's something that we know will be helpful for our health and wellness, or to take time for ourselves, or to set back to say no.
Yeah.
That's hard to do when, you know, so yeah, I think it's the both and, you know, can I do this for my kids? The very cliche metaphor is put your oxygen mask on first, right? You get in the airplane and but it's the same idea outside of the airplane.
Why is it that we fixate so much on the money side of things, though? As if how can we, I had a question from a mum, how can we justify using money on ourselves?
Yeah, this is a much deeper question than those words. And so we can get under it a little bit, but money is value, right? We're talking about value. So money is a trade in value. If I give you money for something, I get something back. And I'm going to pay for something I value, right? So, you know, $1,000 for this pen would be really flippin' expensive. $1,000 for a house is nothing, right? The question lies, what's the value in $1,000? I'm making this number up just because it's a rounded number, right? But $1,000 in getting something that's going to make me, as a mother, healthy and well enough to give to my family in ways that are priceless, right? But I think we're actually talking about value and worthiness. Definitely. So does someone see themselves as worthy of receiving the value of that thing? We're not just talking about money. We're talking about worthiness.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's not seeing the value or the worth in ourselves to justify spending money on ourselves. It's probably why mums often spend so much money on their children, and then they get the dregs if they're lucky.
Yes. So isn't that interesting? If I think any moms out there, certainly I know from talking to you that you and I would both agree with this. I think most moms would. If your kid was struggling and he or she, and someone who was trustworthy were to say to you, I can help. I have something available that will help your child never struggle again in this way. Right? Now, again, we can talk about big ticket, big value things or little ticket, little value, but let's just say it's this thing, right? I don't know about you, but I would pay anything. Right?
Yeah.
But if someone said that to us, we would second guess it and doubt it.
We'd believe that we were selfish.
Yes. Yes. So it's about how much do we value our health versus compared to how much do we value our children's health. Now, the irony is that from where I sit, they're deeply interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So by saying no to ourselves as mothers, no, I don't value my own health enough to fill in the blank, get that gym membership, go to see that therapist, engage in that coaching program, get my hair cut.
Even going to like a yoga class
go to
is
yoga
too much
class,
for
go
someone.
to dinner with a friend, whatever it is, right? If we're saying to ourselves, I'm unwilling to spend the money on myself in that way, we are essentially saying, I don't value my health and wellness enough to spend the money in that way. Most people who go there, many of us do, will somewhere have been taught in their lives, either through modeling of their own mother or culture or whatever it was as they were being raised, that, good mothers or women shouldn't focus on themselves, right? So now we get back to, what are those beliefs we're carrying around that are getting in our way and limiting us from really accessing true health and wellness?
So how would someone even start to work on putting their health first? Because we know that kids mirror what they see in parents. So imagine if we're these parents who go off and they do have that gym membership, or they choose to put their health first. Our kids are seeing that and they're like, oh wow, okay, mum's making her health a priority. Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, it's funny. I've never sort of called this out this way, but I almost think that it would be helpful if we were to change that language. Put our health first. Like, there's something about that just sounds neglectful. So maybe we can just switch the language to say, to focus on our health in service of our kids, right? Or just to focus on our health. I mean,
or make it a priority.
Yes.
Rather than...
Yes. If I could get on all the stages I want to get on, I would be trying to shake up this definition of what it means to be a good mother. Because when we focus, we're going in circles a bit. This is a little bit redundant at this point, but when we say a good mother focuses on her kids and makes sure that her kids are healthy and well, and there's no mention of her and her well-being in that process, we're missing the point, because we can't do that thing we want to do if we're not healthy and well.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, we can workshop it with you if you want. Do you
Sure.
have a hard time spending money on yourself?
I'm a bit better now, but yes, I still do. Especially now when I feel very vulnerable, not bringing in any money for my family. So how can you then spend money? It's that cycle that we're talking about.
So let's start with the first part you mentioned. What is the belief that you hold about what it means, or women who aren't mothers, who are not making money, who are not bringing in money? And when I say, what is the belief you hold, I'm not actually asking you to tell me the rational belief. I'm telling, what is the hidden, buried, old belief that you have yeah.
There is a few, because I've tried to do work around the money thing for me. One is, so my mum was a single parent,
Yes.
and my dad left when I was 7.
Yes.
And he was the main earner. So he then sort of dangled money in front of my mum and said, well, I'm not going to support you. So she was left with 5 children on her own, without any money, without any income.
Yes.
So I feel, I guess in the back of my mind, I feel vulnerable. What would happen if that was to be the case for me? My husband left me and I'm left with 2 children on my own. I don't have any income coming in. I know logically my husband is nothing like my dad, but that's still there, ingrained in me.
So it sounds like part of what you're saying is that there's some belief in there that if you are not making any money and you're relying on your husband, your partner, to make the money, that you are, it's like we in coaching and clinical work, we say there's 2 ways to move through life, right? To me and by me. When I'm moving through life in a to me state, life is happening to me. I'm at the mercy of what everything else is happening. I don't have a lot of choice. I don't have a lot of control, right? Does that make sense? It's like, and when we're in that place, Lara, when we're in a to me place, we feel anxious, we feel trapped, we feel stuck, right? Because it's like we're relying on everything around us to be okay. And there's a little bit of a piece of that in this question, right? If I'm not working and I'm not bringing in any money, then I have to defer everything to my husband and partner. Because if anything bad were to happen and he were to leave, I'd be screwed. So there's so much wrapped in that. There's dependency wrapped in that. There's to me, right? There's a little bit like I have no choice or control because I'm not bringing in any money. Maybe that's a bit of the limiting belief. If I'm not bringing in my own money, I have no choice and control over how money is spent. I have to defer to other people, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I'm hearing, which again, I don't know, you can choose to dig into this or not, is, yes, there's the fear of what would it mean if you were to be, if your husband were to leave, which logically, is likely not to happen. But if that were to happen and you were left with 5 kids, it leads me to wonder, what is the belief that you learned about your mom, who is raising a handful of kids by herself, with respect to self-care? What belief did she teach you? How did she model self-care or spending money on herself when she was raising you?
Yeah. I can't remember her having much money. So any money that would come in would be on us, on the 5 kids, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to be clear just for this conversation. I think this is a valuable conversation, whether or not you're talking about spending thousands of dollars on ourselves as mothers in service of our health and well-being, or $1 on ourselves as mothers, right? So we're not talking about the specific amount right now as much as that kind of psychological, emotional choice that happens. Am I going to spend this dollar on myself or my child?
Yeah.
Right. And so you are telling me that you were raised by a woman where you never saw her spend money on herself when she was raising you. So what's the message in that?
Then you're a mum, you spend money on your children only.
Right. So there's a limiting.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Why is it crazy?
It seems crazy to me because, like we were talking about, you have every right to spend money on yourself to feel good. If you want to attend a class, for example, a yoga class, if that's going to make you feel good, why not spend that money? I think mums have this sort of coming from my point of view, a bit of a martyr. Like, well, I'm only spending money on my children. That's just me. I won't spend money on myself. And it's like, kudos to you. You spend money on your kids only. And it needs to change. It needs to be like, you're not selfish. You can go out and spend that money on yourself.
Yeah, I often call it, you're not selfish, you're self-full. You're filling yourself up so you can give back. So yeah, so I think I said this maybe in our last conversation, but the question I ask over and over of myself and the work I do is, what part are you playing in the things within the things that are not working for you? Not where is it your fault? How are you to blame? But what part are you playing? And if there's a mother out there who's never allowing herself to spend resources, time, money, energy on herself, and only giving to her children, she's likely also the person who's feeling burnt out and exhausted and lonely and disconnected. And so that question, what part are you playing in that, is really important. That's what gets us to sort of below the line, to me mentality, to above the line, by me mentality. I am playing a part in my life. My life is being created by me. And I have choices that are going to lead to me feeling depleted and anxious and alone. And I can make choices that are going to lead me to feeling resourced and grounded and connected. And the choices are what help us get there. But again, to remind you and all your listeners, in order to make the kind of choices that help us get there, we have to go back and really dig into those beliefs we have about ourselves and motherhood in the world. Because if we believe that it's quote unquote selfish or bad mothering to spend on ourselves, then we might make that choice once to go to a yoga class, but it's not, the choice isn't going to be made enough for us to benefit from the health and wellness that comes from these things, because we'll just defer right back to that old belief. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's just seen as a treat, as a one-off thing that I'll just do, but I won't do it again, sort of thing. It's
So let me ask you a question. So I will ask you the question that I ask people all the time. If you're standing on, well, I always ask this about the Grand Canyon, because the Grand Canyon is, do you know what the Grand Canyon is?
Yeah, I've been, yeah.
So you have, okay, so you may have your own version, but let's say you're standing on one side of the Grand Canyon, right? You're like on the cliff of the Grand Canyon, and all the way across the other side of the Grand Canyon is one of your children, and he is suffering. And between you and him, there is one of those Indiana Jones type rope bridges with like every other wood plank is broken off, but it's a bridge that goes all the way across. And that's the only way to get to your kid. Do you go across the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's terrifying. But the reason you go across the bridge is because your desire is so strong. Your purpose is so strong. Your why is so strong. You're not just going over that bridge to, pick a pretty flower over there and coming back. You wouldn't do it. The fear would be too great, but your kid is over there, right? So one of the things that I think happens is that when we think about the yoga class, or we think about the therapy, or we think about the coaching, or we think about the dinner with our friends, or we think about the whatever the heck it is, right?
Just a beach walk. Yeah. Just
a beach
on your
walk.
own.
Right. We think about those things that we might be doing. We think we're only doing them for ourselves. So tell me right now, what is one thing, as you sit here talking with me today, that you would love to invest in for yourself and your health, that you are telling yourself in this particular moment, I can't spend my money on that thing because I'm not working at the moment? What is one thing, big or small?
I guess a gym membership, like
A gym
exercise
membership
is my thing.
Perfect. Okay. So I want to ask you right now, why going to a gym and exercising feels important to you? Like, what's your first answer? Why does working out feel important to you? going to the gym?
I just feel alive when I go. My mood is better. I'm calmer. I feel happier. I feel more connected. I feel stronger.
Beautiful. So why is feeling better in your mind and being happier and more connected and stronger and feeling better in your body, why are those things important to you?
Because then I feel like myself again, and I'm a better parent. I'm a better partner.
And why is feeling like yourself again and being a better parent and a better partner important to you?
Because I don't know. I guess it's a good question. Why is that important to me? I'm stumped.
This is why you're not going to the gym.
Yeah.
So who else benefits from you being the best version of yourself and more available to your kids and your husband? Who else benefits?
My family, my friends, my clients, my
Great.
listeners.
Beautiful. So let's go into your family just for a moment, because it's the first one you said, and it's really what we've been talking about. In what way does going to the gym and moving your body and exercising so that you feel better in your body, less anxious, all of those things you mentioned, why are those things important to your boys?
Because I'm then not short-tempered with them or angry. And I'm like a happier mum. I'm like a better version of myself. And then they resonate off me.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next question, which you're starting to answer, is if you're less irritable and you're all those things that you just mentioned, right? More available to them, more present, less irritable. In what way does that actually literally serve them? What do they get from that?
They get a happier home.
They get a happier home. And how does a happy home benefit your boys?
Because then they're happy.
Right.
They're safe.
Why is their happiness and safety important to you?
Because that's like a big priority for me as their mum.
Right. Because you want them to live long, happy, connected lives. Okay. So let me ask you the question again. Why is it important for you to go to the gym?
So that my boys feel they have a mum that's happy and connected and thriving and strong.
You're going to the gym so that your boys can live happy, healthy, long lives. That's why you're going to the gym. Yeah. So if it's important to you to raise boys who have access to and are able to live happy, healthy, long lives, you better get your ass to that gym.
Yeah.
So is the gym membership selfish?
No.
No. So we could do this with just about anything. Because the reality is that what our children need most are securely attached parents. Here's this statement again.
Secure attached, yeah.
What we mean by that, if you think about like, you know, this is a little bit digging into the weeds of child development and psychology, but in a healthy scenario, a parent, mother or father, but we're talking about, or grandmother or babysitter, whoever it is, but we're talking about mothers right now. But between about birth and about age 2 or 3, depending on the child, there's a very normal codependency that happens, right? Your bodies are really one and the same, especially in the very early part of mothering, right? Whether you're breastfeeding or not, it's like Little people can't survive on their own without
Mm.
their mother or parent, right? And so it is really, really normal for a mother to feel totally dependent on by that child, right? Their nervous systems are interconnected, right? Everything's so enmeshed. We already talked about how important it is to stay resilient, to be able to tolerate that, right? Because if we're going to provide to our kids the way our little children need us, we can't do that from an empty place, right? But the other thing that happens is around age 2 or 3, our children begin to what's called differentiate. They begin to pull away. They begin to recognize their brains develop enough to say, oh, wait a second, I am actually not you. I am my own person, right? So they pull away and say, no, I want to do it. And then they're like, no, you do it. They pull away and they say, I don't want to get in the car, right? And then they jump in bed with you the next morning, right? They pull away and say, I don't like you. And then they say, Mommy, I love you, right? There's this pulling away and coming back and pulling away and coming back. To be a securely attached mother means that we're staying steady during that pulling away and the coming back. If we're not steady and secure, a couple of things can happen. One is that our kids can pull away and we can get anxious and we can kind of follow them and say, no, 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 you need me. You need me to do that for you. Essentially, you're not safe without me in the world, right? That's what happens when we're anxiously attached or when we're having a lot of anxiety, right? The other thing that can happen is our kids can pull away and we can take it personally and we can be like, fine, don't expect me to give you I mean, we may say this literally, or maybe we may just be putting this out, energetically. Our kid pulls away and says, I don't like you. And we essentially pull away in the other direction, say, fine, I don't like you either. Now, we're probably not saying that in words, but we can do that psychologically, right? So in order to stay that securely attached parent that is there when our kids need us, when they're ready to come back to us, we got to get our butts to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get our butts to therapy. We got to get our butts to yoga. We need biological, psychological, social, spiritual health is so important for us to be able to be like an oak tree. It doesn't mean we're not going to feel the impacts of those things. It's really frustrating to have a toddler, a young child pulling away and throwing tantrums, or a baby even that's crying and we don't know why and we don't know how to, tend to them. That's hard. And we can both feel that discomfort and be resilient at the same time, which is what our kids need.
Mm-hmm.
But if we are not spending resources on ourselves to tend to our health and wellness, we can't do that.
Mm.
So when I pull way back and I work with folks, I'm like, okay, I understand the concept that it feels selfish to spend time, money, energy on yourself, but it is the biggest gift you can give to your family, the biggest gift, because what your 2 boys need most to be happy and healthy and well in their lifetime is for you to be happy and healthy and well so that you can stay steady when all that shit hits the fan. And maybe your version is the gym. Maybe someone else's version is something else, but whatever it is, you do it in service of them.
And I love that. And I hope listeners can hear that could be a way of you trying to do this for yourself. Because I know there was questions around how do you find your own value? But I think from what you're saying is do the thing and listen to this conversation and know that it's not a selfish thing to do, and just notice how you feel maybe doing this small thing, taking 15 minutes for a walk on the beach. And
totally. It can be so simple, but I think another way of approaching this question is to ask, if I were to really value myself, what choice would I make right now? If I really believed that my health mattered in the health and wellness of my children, what choice would I make right now? If I really believed I was worthy of spending, again, resources, time, money, energy, whatever it is on myself, what choice would I make right now? And then to make that choice, to act as if, because we won't make those kinds of choices from the place of devaluing ourselves. We just won't. So we sort of have to put ourselves in that position of feeling what it would feel like if we did, and then making the choice from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I love that question. What would you do if you did value yourself?
And it can, and to your point, it can be simple. It can be take a 20-minute shower by myself with the door closed.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to mean going out and spending lots of money, right?
Yeah. And I love that too, because you could get then listeners saying, well, if I had the choice between buying my child a new pair of shoes or going to a yoga class, then I'm going to choose his shoes. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say over and over and over, what people do not remember in life is what shoes they wore. They remember their relationships. They remember how they felt around their parents. So I understand, I'm seeing that all the time right now. It's the holidays, right? And I have, I'm running these programs and people are like, well, I can't afford the program right now because I have to give my kid Christmas gifts. And I literally am like, I want you to understand that this gift is worth so much more than a new toy. It is invaluable. Your kids don't know that now. I get that. But the way in which investing in ourselves now in service of our kids, the rest of our kids' lives, and it is just, I mean, I could be on a soapbox about this all day. That mom who says, I'm not unwilling to spend money on myself now because I have to buy my kids Christmas gifts or a new pair of shoes or whatnot. And again, I just want to differentiate between people who are in true poverty, right? Because it is obviously, we're talking about privilege here, right? And there are some people who literally can't put food on the table for their kids. That is not what I'm talking about right now, right? But if we are, saying that, it's like, okay, the money you will end up spending later on your own health, because our mental and emotional health is mental health is so connected to our physical health that if we don't not doing something to tend to our emotional and mental well-being now, our physical health will decline quickly. We'll spend money on that, right? We also know, and I say this with giant bubble hearts coming out of my head, because this is not a moment to shame and blame, but it is a moment to say, we got to pay attention. If I am not tending to my anxiety, my guilt, my worry, my kids are much more likely to grow up feeling anxious and worried and guilty. And so I'll spend money on their therapy later if I don't spend money on myself now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe my relationship is going to blow up because of all of these things that I'm carrying that I'm not dealing with. Divorce is really flipping expensive, right? So I think we just need to get a little bit more like big picture thinking and like,
perspective.
what is the value we're actually talking about here?
I love that you tied in Christmas, because it's just crazy season for some reason. And I never noticed it in the UK. Maybe it's because I wasn't a mum then, but everyone around me seems to be so stressed and caught up. And I noticed it in my clients, and they're hunching over because they're just carrying everything. It's like, well, I have to buy all this food and all these different gifts for every family. And you're just like, wow, okay.
Yeah. And again, limiting beliefs are infiltrated in that statement. Think about how by me and below the line, again, I'm referring to a larger concept, but that's I have to buy all these gifts. There's no choice and control and agency in that, right? That's like, I have no choice. And of course it's a choice. Of course it's a choice. Right?
Definitely.
What part are we playing in the things that aren't working if I'm running around at Christmas and I am debilitated and I'm guilty and I'm exhausted and I'm overwhelmed and I'm stressed, I am playing a part in that. Yes, the holidays are inherently filled with things that are influencing our nervous system. So we're impacted by all of that stuff. But if I'm walking around suffering that way, there are some different choices I could be making, right?
Definitely. And I'm sure people choose I have to buy these things because they are worried what other people will think of them if they don't buy the things and get the best gifts and have the best food.
which is like a
that
good
cycle.
if I'm a good daughters and good sisters and good friends spend a lot of money on their family members.
Yes, the good girl, the good boy,
that's the
child.
belief, which is a limiting belief. There's lots of ways to connect lovingly with people who we care about. It's not just about all the gifts we give them, right? But if we are raised in a system that says, I will not be a good daughter if I don't A, B, or C, or mother, or wife, or friend.
Yeah.
It's in the point of the nuance of life.
This has been amazing, as always, Kate, because this is going to lead us on to our next episode about the good child syndrome. Yes. So for those who have resonated with this one, you can listen out for the next one with Kate. Is there anything you want listeners to leave with on this episode?
I think the money question, I just want to offer compassion and kindness, and for everyone to be tender with themselves around this, right? Money is a hard topic. Spending money is a hard topic. And it's easy to simplify it in a conversation like this and be like, why are you worrying about it? Just go spend money. So I don't want this to come across that way. Like, this is deep. These beliefs we have run deep in our DNA, in our bones. And so we need to be really kind with ourselves around it, and not, none of this is easy. I think the concepts are fairly simple, which is just like we did with you in that little coaching moment. You invest in your gym membership, and your kids are getting more of the kind of mom that's going to lead them to be healthy and well for the rest of their lives. Like that is a simple concept.
Yeah.
But getting to that place can feel difficult, right? And so
it's that thing, isn't it? It's simple. It's just not easy.
That's right.
A lot of things. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
I love that you've said that. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to just talk to me and do this. So thank you again. And for anyone who has questions for Kate, she's amazing and she's happy to answer any. If you have them, it's realtalkformums@gmail.com. And please share this with anyone who you think will resonate with what we've had to say today. And thank you again, and bye for now. Bye.